And here we go. I believe that everyone can see this because it shows that I'm sharing my screen. Okay, great. So I believe that everyone has received the link to the annual progress report already from either Kelly or I in the past couple weeks or so, and it should direct you to this page that we have on our website. So this is kind of the main page, the entry page for all things related to the APR, including deadlines. But for this training, we'll kind of just walk you from start to finish of how to complete the APR. As you can see here, we have some instructions on who must submit an APR, and also importantly is the due dates as well. So for this APR, parts 1, 2, and 3 with their attachments are due on Monday, July 24th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. And as soon as the clock hits midnight or 12 a.m. on Tuesday, July 25th, you will not be able to submit anything, and Kelly and I will know about that. And then part 4, along with the attachments, is due on Monday, August 21st, 2023. Again, as soon as 12 a.m. hits on Tuesday, August 22nd, you will not be able to submit an APR. I also want to mention, if you have any questions, feel free to share your question. Feel free to interrupt me. I don't mind. And also type in questions that you have in the chat as well. All right, first step to accessing the APR is to create an account. So to complete APR's parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will need to create an account. If you're not sure how to do that, there is an instruction video on how to create a login. And I will click on that really quickly. And here is the video. So this video walks you through the steps for that. And this is the video from last year, but it is the same process. So hopefully you won't have any issues there. And we also have links here of how to log in, create an account, reset your password, and logging out. Okay. How to complete each part of the APR. So again,
Isabella, sorry,
yes.
I have a quick question. This is Becca. So for my agency with Western Dairyland, we have multiple different departments that have grants. We should each have our own login.
That is entirely up to you. You can have your own login, or you can share a username. The only thing is, if you're sharing a username, you can't have multiple people logged in at the same time. So multiple people can't be completing the APR at the same time.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I know for some programs, and I'll just share, like the Family Support Center, they just created separate logins because I think it was a bit easier. But you do need to communicate on which of you will submit the part 4 of the APR, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit about what each part is.
Yeah, I think for Western Dairyland, you've got what,
Three.
four. So there's it may be easier just to create separate logins for each program, but whichever works for you guys is fine with us.
Yep.
Thank you.
I guess I have a question then, because we only really have one program.
Yeah.
Would you recommend just one username then for us?
Yes, preferably. If there's just, say for instance, your CEO just needs to sign it, I would just share that login info. Or Sarah, you just need to submit the financial pieces. I would just have, say, Ali share the login info with you, and you'll be able to upload to that.
Okay, that was kind of what I was thinking, but just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Right, how to complete part each part of the APR, you'll see that completes parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 for each program that receives grant funding, unless, as we kind of just shared here, if you're a big agency, then only one program needs to submit part 4. And I will go into more detail on that if what I just said sounds confusing. But please be sure to click Save Draft frequently, because you'll be able to return to your work as within the time frame for parts 1, 2, and 3, again, until Monday, July 24th. But please also be sure to review your parts before submitting them, and then incomplete APRs cannot be submitted. And I will share an example as we dive into the parts of what that means. And we also have the online APR guide. In this guide, you will actually find some really helpful tips and tricks, and also a frequently asked questions section. So I'll open up really quickly. And here is the online APR guide. And again, it has the introduction, what the attachments are, how to create a username, how to access the APR once you've created a username, the contact definitions that you'll need for parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, how to calculate outcome indicators if it is required for your initiative. The only initiative that doesn't report outcomes is basic needs. Filling in the APR, what yes, no questions mean, if text box expand, if you have quite a bit of content to add, what the attachments mean and where they're located, timing out, and submission. So for the submission process, the CEO will need to sign off on parts 3 and part 4 of the APR. So they will need to sign in and input their signature. So actually writing out or drawing out an electronic signature. And please share your login info with your CEO so that they can sign it. And then upon submitting the APR, you will receive a confirmation email and from Kelly. And if you included attachments with your submission, you will also receive a copy of the attachments as well. And please be sure to retain a copy of the APR just in case something happens. With technology, you never know. But the online APR guide is a valuable tool for some commonly asked questions. And we highly recommend that you review the online APR guide for any questions before you come to us, because we might just tell you, please refer to the online APR guide. And the online APR guide is seen in multiple places, not just here, across the different parts of APR. And we have the technical assistance as well. So many of you are here after clicking on the Zoom link here, but we are also hosting APR office hours on Tuesday, June 27th from 9 to 11 a.m. and then Monday, July 17th from 1 to 3 p.m. So what this means is that Kelly and I will be available for any questions or concerns throughout this period. We will be in a Zoom call during any of this time, so feel free to pop in and out as your time allows. And all of these office hours will be virtual as well. Again, with the confirmation of submission, you will receive it from Kelly. And also just please retain a copy for yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or email us based off the initiative APR that you are completing. Right. Once the APR, so what kind of happens after you submit the APR? So each of the APRs will be reviewed by Kelly or I. So I will be reviewing health and education, and Kelly will be reviewing financial stability and basic needs. And then We also have volunteer advisory council members who are kind of experts in the field who will be reviewing your APR. And that will take place in about September, October. And then the Community Impact Committee will review it, I believe, in November. Finance Committee will review the financial pieces, and then the board will kind of review them in December. And then in January 2024, we're hoping to send you a letter of the sort that, provides a status update of your APR. Any questions? Okay, see none? So we'll dive right in. So you click on part 1. And the reason why this page pops up is because I'm not logged in. So I will need to log in first. And maybe I don't remember my password for this one. Let's see, it's spinning. Okay, so after I logged in, this page may prompt up for you, but just click on it and it'll direct you to the APR main page. We'll scroll down so that we can access part 1. All right, part 1 of the APR is kind of what we like to call the narrative portion. And I will explain what that means in a little bit, but you'll input your agency and program, and then selecting your impact area. Then we have list the following email addresses. So for individuals who will be receiving a copy of the submission. And once you submit part 1, it'll be emailed to individuals' emails address that you listed here. And it also asks if you want to send a copy of your submission to any other email address. So if you're the grant manager or a program director and you're completing the annual progress report and you don't list yourself here and you want to add another email address, click yes, and you'll have the option to include another one. One thing I want to note as well is that anything that's marked in this red asterisk here is required to have an answer of the sort, whether it's a text or a number. Anything that is marked with a red asterisk must be completed, otherwise you will not be able to submit your APR. All right. Then you click on your impact area. So you're clicking health. I just clicked health as an example, but we'll scroll down, and first section is agency information. So has your main office information changed since the application? And if yes, you'll see some boxes pop and you'll be able to update that information. If no, then nothing will appear and you can move on. And has your local office information changed since the application? So what we mean by local office information is if your main office headquarters is in Milwaukee, for example, and your local office is in Eau Claire or Chippewa Falls. That's what we mean by that as well. So if your local office information has changed since the application, click yes. Again, boxes will appear for you to update the information. If no, then click no. Please indicate your agency's fiscal year, so the beginning and ending date. And you can also click on this little calendar icon, and you can also click on the dates, or I believe, yep, or type it in, I believe. Have there been any significant changes in your agency in the past year? So we want to know, has your agency, undergone some reorganization? And this is specific to your agency, not your program. Have you just received some ample grant funding and were able to hire on new staff? Was there a change in leadership? we want to know what those changes were. And if yes, you'll be provided an option, a box to explain what those circumstances are or what those, what has changed. If no, then click no. Has your agency been placed on probation or have any special conditions been applied to your funding sources? So these are for if your agency is receiving funding from, say, federal dollars and you've experienced some challenges along the way, and you've been on probation or special conditions. If you click yes, you'll be able to, you are provided a text box of explaining the situation and what has been done to address those issues. And you'll see here, you can also expand the text box as well. If no, then no box will appear.
So this question obviously came about because, you know, it happened, where we had an organization that was on probation with a funder, ended up losing quite a bit of funding as a result. And that was not being communicated with us at United Way. And so now we're asking, that question. So doesn't necessarily mean anything bad is going to happen. But we just need to know, we need to know what's going on.
Yeah. Please indicate the percentage of agency's board meetings during this time. And this is in numbers, so you can type it in, or you can click as many times as you want until you get to 100, I guess, for this. Okay, section 2, which is specific to the program information. So similar to how it was above, has your program contact information changed since the application? I forgot to mention this earlier, but what we mean by program contact and local key decision maker and chief executive officer, the definitions for those can be found in our online APR guide of what we mean by those. But a program contact is who we contact if United Way has any questions specifically related to your program.
And depending upon the size of your organization, for some of you with larger organizations, you have different people in different roles. For others of you that, the CEO may be the program contact person too. So it just is all dependent upon your organization. So don't, look at how we define the roles, and that will tell you who goes in there, not necessarily what you use for program or position titles. We have found that sometimes those position titles don't match with what we're necessarily looking for. And so we've tried to make those, define the position that we're looking for, rather than use a position title that you guys might use, because you all have different meanings on those.
Yep. That is also why we ask you to fill out the contact information too when we send out the MOA as well. So. And has your program contact information changed since the application? You click yes, a box will appear for you to update that information. If no, no box will appear. Have there been any significant internal changes to your program in the past year? So again, internal changes, have there been staff changes, restructuring, and for some agencies, the program and the agency may be one of the same.
Again, based on size. So a large organization, so that first section was all about your agency. a large organization, I'm using an example, Western Dairyland is on the call. They are a large organization with lots of programs. Their information should be different. You take a much smaller organization such as the community table, their program information or their agency information along with their program information may not be different at all, because they do kind of one thing within their organization. So it just kind of depends upon, you know, the size of your organization and how you deliver services.
Again, similar question as above, but specific to the agency. Has your program been placed on probation or any special conditions applied to your funding? Click yes. A box will appear for you to explain those, how you will address those issues and fulfill those conditions. Click no. No box will appear. And since your application has been submitted, have there been any external trends that are noteworthy or relative to your program? So I'll use an example of a lot of the federal funding from ARPA or kind of the COVID funds have kind of ended this year. So you want to know how, say, some of that has impacted your program. You know, what changes that have occurred outside the four walls of your program that are affecting it. If that makes sense. And click yes, and then provide as much information using the space, and then no box will appear. Please share a success story of how your program has positively impacted a participant. Include participants' background, services provided by you and your collaborative partners, and the participant's outcome. We want a success story, really, of, you know, you served a participant from start to finish, and we want to know that story. And we also utilize these in our marketing as well, but we know that you have success stories and you want to hear it.
And it may not be a finished story yet. You know, you may still be in that process. You know, we understand that we all sometimes measure success in those small steps now. You know, and so we get that. So, but what can we use to show the donor that their dollar makes a difference in someone's life? And it doesn't necessarily, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that they've gone from point A to point Z. They still may be at, you know, point M, and that's okay. Progress is good.
Yeah, just on a story. Next question is similar, but providing testimonials and quotes. So this is where you put any direct quotes from any interactions, any feedback you receive from participants or clients or community members. Again, please don't identify the individual, just identify the relationship. And again, we'll be using these for marketing and also sharing this with our donors as well. And you can put as many quotes and testimonials as you like, but we just would like at least 3. Please describe how your program has maintained or strengthened relationships with your program's collaborative partners identified in the grant application. Have there been any challenges? And have you added new partners? And if so, describe. The reason why we ask this is on your grant application, we ask that you have at least one collaborative partner. We always we require that because we don't want programs duplicating services. We're not in that. We like it when we're working together, because in our community, we are working together to create a change. But we want to just like an update on how that partnership is going. Have there been challenges? Have you added new partners? This question and the box here provides as much, just to provide as much info as you can about that. And so the reason why we asked this collaborative partner again is partner question again is because you just want to know update. And if things aren't going well with you and a collaborative partner, we'd like to know in case there's any assistance that we're able to provide, in hopes that we can work together. How has United Way supported your program beyond funding to be more successful? Are there some examples that, that you can provide, whether it's participating in the program partner meetings or meeting with Kelly and I individually? So how has United Way supported your programming? How many potential clients, actual or estimated, do you believe were not served by your program during this fiscal year due to lack of adequate financial funding or other resources? And briefly explain the circumstances or situation, as well as how you determine the number, and please indicate if there's a waiting list. We want to know about the individuals that you were not able to serve, whether it was due to not, and you didn't receive enough funding, or there were some barriers, whether it's, there's lack of public transportation. We have a list here of reasons why people or clients were not served, and please state that. And the reason why we ask this is we do utilize this information on our campaign trail, where United Way staff goes out to different organizations and kind of share what we do. And, we shared this is what would happen if we were able to have more dollars, and you sharing of what would happen if you did is a piece of that. So we do utilize this information. Are there any internal gaps or external gaps that have negatively affect your ability to provide services? An internal gap, an example would be you don't have enough dollars to hire another staff member to help manage your program. An external gap would be, I'm blanking on it. Oh my goodness. Sorry. An external gap. Good.
Yeah, an external gap would be something, that you don't really have control over. It's something maybe within, service, the service system itself. Something like, what I know is the homeless world. So, a service gap is there's no affordable housing. You can't control that. Unless you build affordable housing. But that's definitely a gap in service. Transportation, that may not be something that you do. But if your clients had better transportation, would they be better able to access your services? I'm trying to think of something in, maybe the health world, in the, mental health world, there's just not enough providers, so those kinds of things, what's happening out there. And what that does is it allows us to hear from you, what's preventing you from being able to provide the best service that you can, and, at a bigger picture level, and can United Way be, help in that solution?
Exactly what Kelly said. Are there any internal gaps? If yes, please share what they are. If no, no box will appear. Have there been any changes? Have any changes been made to your program based specifically on your experience and or evaluation of outcomes or outputs? And for programs that do measure outcomes, or all of you utilize some type of metric to measure your outcomes or your outputs, and we want to know if the tool that you use to measure your outcomes has changed since your application. And you utilized on your application, you said that you were going to use a specific evaluation tool, and then discovered that it wasn't working, that you were not getting the outcomes that you were interested in, and so you decided to switch to a different outcome or a different tool. And we just want to know if that has happened. If yes, then box will appear. If no, no box will appear. What barriers do your participants face regarding ableism, racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, etc.? How does your program address those barriers, and how do you attempt to reach participants with these barriers that are not seeking your services? As you may recall, in the application, we did ask a question related to how is your program addressing barriers? Well, this APR question is kind of expanding on that, and we want to know what type of barriers your clients are potentially facing, and are there resources available to in Braille, for instance? I'm putting it out there, or do you have resources, and are there services being able to be provided in another language, for example? How is your program addressing those barriers, and how do you reach participants who are not walking through your door? How are you doing, say, outreach to those individuals?
I think we've gotten the answer frequently of, well, we serve everybody that walks through our doors, and we just want you all to know that that's great, that you're not, discriminating against anybody that walks through your doors. But what we are wanting people to acknowledge and start thinking about is who's not walking through your doors. Who are those? Who are those people, and what populations, for whatever reason, are not seeking your services, and how can you better outreach to them, or how can you, acknowledge those isms, if you will, that are out there, and what are you doing, to address that? We're not saying you have to have this great, written out plan. Some organizations do, quite honestly, have a DEI plan. But, we're not saying that you have to have it, but what we want to know is that you're thinking about it, that it's part of your culture, and that, how do you, how are you addressing, those kinds of things? I mean, even, again, you have smaller organizations that have one or two people maybe operating them. And then you compare it to, and I'm going to pick on Western Dairyland because you're here, that has, over 150 employees, and so a much larger organization. And so we kind of have to gear this towards, that two-person show, that one or two-person show, but recognizing that there's, different levels of sophistication based on size of an organization. But again, we just really want to know, what are you doing? What are you doing? So again, so we can tell our donors that, our organizations are doing this.
Yep. Were United Way funds used as a match for any other grant? In some programs, I believe the United Way funds are used to match federal dollars. And if you click yes, it'll ask you which type of, what type of grant, whether it's a private foundation or government. And if you click on one of them, what was the total value of the other grants that United Way funds matched?
So if you get $20,000 from United Way and you use that $20,000 to match a $100,000 grant from the federal government, you know, what we want to know is that it's a government grant. And then the next question is, we want to know the value of that total grant. So the total grant would be $100,000 that you're receiving. Again, when we add all of that up, that's a nice leverage number that we can show. You know, it's literally millions of dollars that you are using, you as program partners are using United Way funds for to leverage those government grants typically.
Yes. And if United Way funds were not used as a match for other grants, click no. Is there anything else you would like to share about your program? Yes. There's a text box that's provided. Click no, no box will appear. And we will save draft.
So that last question, I used to work for a program partner and I've filled out these annual progress reports a lot. And I will tell you that I would get to that last question and I'd be like, I don't want to write anything more. Right? But the message we want to give you is that this annual progress report, not only is it providing data for us and information for us, but it's also your opportunity to tell your story. Tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, so if there are bad things happening, I mean, not bad things, but if, you know, your world stinks right now for whatever reason, let us know that so we know. If your world is great right now and things are going well, or you have wonderful things that you want to share away. You know, we want to hear about them. And you know, so that we can use that and leverage that, you know, in our campaign. The more money you know, the better stories we have, the more money we raise. The more money we raise, the more money we get to give back to you guys. So it just kind of goes around, you know, goes around that way. So, you know, I realize this is kind of long and you might have the opportunity, you might feel like this is an opportunity for me to skimp on stuff. Please don't. Please don't. We want to hear what's going on. We want to hear the good stories. And if there's negative stuff going on, you know, I don't want to say negative. That's, you know, if it's not such a good story, you know, if it's a little more of a drama story and not a feel good story, that's okay too. Because that helps us tell a story as well.
Yeah. Any questions about part 1 before we move into part 2? Okay. Let's dive into part 2. Part 2 is kind of what we staff like to call as the outcomes sections. If you're in basic needs, you do not report outcomes, but there is a question that every initiative will need to answer for this section, regardless if you report outcomes. And you see here, this same context here is going to be the same across all the 4 parts. And I know it's going to seem a little redundant, but we just want you to complete this info again. And again, if you would like someone else to receive another email to receive the copy of your submission, click yes, you'll be able to add an additional one. The local key decision maker, the definition is on our online APR guide. Please see that. All right, select your impact area for this program. I'll just click basic needs to show an example of what that is. Basic needs, it just asks the question about the bold goal. You serve any meals, provide any units of shelter, any house, permanently house any households, and then did you measure any other outputs not listed above? If you click yes, you'll be able to describe those outputs. If no, no other boxes will appear. But I believe that most of us on this call do report some sort of outcome. And I'm going to click health to kind of show what that process is as an example. Again, we want you to describe how your program has contributed to the bold goal for the specific initiative. This is the bold goal for health. And down here is where we get to the outcome measurement results, the agency and the program name. And here we have program outcome. And I believe for health, you were required to report either the first outcome or the second outcome. If you're only recording, if you only are reporting on one specific outcome, you just ask, let me start over. If you're in the health initiative, for example, and you're only reporting on outcome number 2 and you're not reporting outcome number 1, please put a 0 here if you're not recording that specific outcome, because it is asterisk in red. And you will not be able to submit the part unless there's some type of number in these blanks.
So that's for anybody in any initiative. If there is, each initiative has different requirements in terms of number of outcomes that you have to measure, number of indicators you have to measure. Some you have to measure them all, some just one. So if there's anything that you don't have to measure, didn't say you're going to measure in your application, put a 0 there. Otherwise it won't let you put a 0 in all of the boxes for that outcome and indicator, because otherwise it won't let you submit.
Yep.
So
and we have it here with like 4 asterisks as well. And I believe in education, you can complete either outcome 1 or 2 or both. And it says, please complete the following outcomes and indicators based off the program outcomes you identified in your grant application. So please refer to your grant application. Total number actually served. So those are the number of individuals that your program has served entirely. The actual number measured for the outcome indicators is how many people, say, completed a survey. And the reason why these two numbers may be the same, they may be different. The reason we ask for the actual number measured for outcome indicators is we don't want to skew any data. And this number here, the number for this is very important when we start recording the actual results for the outcome indicators. But the projected results, this refers to the outcomes you mentioned in your application. So please refer to your application if you do not remember the number that you said you were going to measure and what that outcome percentage is going to be. So on your application, you said, we're going to measure 200 people and that will be 80%. That info there. And then the actual results for the outcome indicators, this number will be, and the actual number measured, you said that you were gonna, that you are measuring 100 people, and then in your actual results, the number of people that actually met this outcome was 80. So this number for the actual results is going to be out of this actual number measured for outcome indicators. And so the percentage would be 80. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, there is a link to the APR guide on how to calculate those numbers.
So you're going to have an actual number of people served. Say you had 120, and you were measuring them by doing a survey, but only 100 of them completed the survey. Your actual number measured for the outcome would be 100. So when you get to, the projected results come right out of your application. What did you say you were going to do? What was the number you said would achieve that outcome and indicator, and what was the percent? And then the actual results is what really happened. So even though you served 120, you only got the data for 100. So we're going to want that we want to know that you served 120. That's why we asked the question. But we want the data about the 100 that you actually have. And so your data will be based off that 100 that you actually measured. Does that make sense?
Okay. Again, if it doesn't, just let us know. And I refer to the online APR guide. I'm going to be zooming through this page just because it is similar, kind of what is stated here, because it's just asking about the indicators. So similar process, actual results number will be out of this actual number measured for outcome indicators. And also, if you're not measuring that outcome or that indicator, please put 0. Then once we get to the bottom, there's a question if your actual results represent a variance of more than plus or minus 5% from your projected results. Please provide an explanation and a reference, but each by number and letter, and provide additional comments. What we mean by this is that here you said that you were going to serve 100 people, and that was going to be, 100%. That's what your projected results were. But in actually, you served 80 people, and the percentage was 80%. We want to know why that is. We know that a lot of things happen throughout the year that it doesn't go as planned because, again, this grant you also wrote this grant 2 years ago and things can change. We want to kind of hear what has happened, and this is also your opportunity to provide any context of why these indicators are the way they are. Okay. And don't forget to save draft as well. Any questions about part 2? Okay. Let us move on to part 3. This page may take a little bit of time to load just because there's a lot of content on here. But please be patient. Again, as in with all of the previous parts, it's the same information: agency, program. List the following email addresses that will receive copies of the submission once you have submitted it. And if you'd like someone else to receive it, then click on your impact area. First we have is attachment A. So I am hoping that many of you may recall, or if you're new to this, you're in the application, you were required to submit a budget for years 1, 2, and 3. And if you did not receive your full funding, you were required to send us an updated budget for years 1, 2, and 3. And I will show you what the budget is in a second, but you can download the budget by clicking on this link here, and it will bring you to an Excel document. And then you can also upload the file by clicking on choose file. We do require that the budget be in Excel format because you will not be able to submit it in a PDF. So it has to be in Excel format. And attachment A can also be submitted with attachments E through I in part 4. So the budget form looks like this. And the proposed program budget for for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. This information is taken from the budget that you submitted to us during the grant application. Again, if you didn't receive your full funding, you will provide the updated budget for year 1 right here.
You may also have submitted a revised budget before our May deadline. That would go there as well. That would be your starting point.
Yes.
That became your new proposed budget.
Yep. Because I understand that things change and that I'll get to that in a second. And then your actual program budget. So what were your what was the actual program budget? Has it changed since the proposed program budget? And down here, we get to specific kind of United Way things as well. Again, these 2 columns should be the same as far as, well, let me rephrase that. The total here, never mind. Sorry, I need to rephrase that. Proposed program budget is what you submitted to us. As Kelly mentioned, if you sent us a revised budget recently, please kind of copy and paste that information here. And then the actual program budget, we want to know how, what expenses what line items and what expenses have changed for the program. Go ahead.
Yeah, column E. Column C is, what did you say your budget was going to be when you wrote this application or when you did a revision of your budget? Column E is what really happened, both on the revenue side as well as the expense side.
The proposed expenses supported by United Way. So on your budget as well, you were on the budget that you submitted during the application process. We wanted to know what you're utilizing United Way dollars for and line items as well. If you used all of United Ways for salaries, then that's fine. But this number here, never mind, I won't get into that. The actual expenses supported by United Way. So this is what you proposed, and this is what you actually utilize the dollars for. And some of the line items change. For instance, if you thought that you were going to spend, $100 on printing, but then you realized, well, we ended up printing a lot more items, and you utilized $200. We kind of want to see what that change was. That's an example. And I believe that these 2 numbers should be the same.
If they're not, so say you were allocated $200 or $20,000. We invested $20,000 in your program, but you only spent $16,000. Then you need to return that additional $4,000 back.
Yeah,
that doesn't carry over into the next year.
I also want to share that this column right here, even though you can't really see much, this This column kind of allows you the opportunity to provide some context of why some of those line items changed. Again, I use the example of we initially thought we were going to spend $100 on printing and we ended up spending $200. This is this blank is here for you to be able to share that. Or some of your employment benefits have changed, or payroll costs were higher. Any questions about the budget?
Okay. This is probably the thing that we get the most, we have to follow up with the most. So if Isabella can scroll to the top a little bit.
Yep.
That orange and that yellow highlighted area where it says organizational name and program name, please fill that out. That makes our life a whole lot easier, kind of thing. But yeah, so just keep in mind the proposed budget is your latest budget that you proposed to us, whether it was back in May of last year or when well, actually, it was probably earlier than that. When the funds were first allocated to you, that might be your last proposed budget. Your last proposed budget might be, end of April when you did a budget modification. Then you have your actual expenses, and then the same thing for how did you propose to spend the United Way dollars that you got? How did that actually get spent? In my head, it's pretty simple, but for whatever reason, this seems to be the nemesis of most people.
If you have any questions about the budget, feel free to let us know. And if you have no idea what some of these definitions, we do have a lovely glossary as a tab on this this attachment. So what's each of these line items mean in the budget? Any questions? Cool. Right, back to APR part 3. Scroll down. So attachment B is your organizational chart for your agency, and then an organizational chart for your program. These are documents that you will create and also upload yourself onto our website, and they must be in a PDF form. Attachment C is upload your board of directors and advisory charts. Again, this is a document that you have created yourself and will need to upload on our website. And I know that these are two separate, you may have them as two separate documents. We want them to be in one document. And it says right here as well. Attachment D. So in the past, this used to be an attachment that you were required to complete and upload. That has since changed where we are just requiring you to complete to basically fill in the blanks. And this is the program service statistics, or kind of the demographics info. And these are the number of individuals that your program has served. And please enter the number of unduplicated clients in Chippewa and Eau Claire counties served by this program. It has male, female, non-binary, other, and unknown. I want to stress how important the unknown section is as well, because if you have participants or clients fill out surveys and gender, they don't input a gender, or you don't have it as a requirement, then, or you don't know, please fill in the unknown section if you do not know their gender. And all of these have to have some sort of number in them, as indicated by the red asterisk attached to it. Ages served. we know that all of you serve different age groups. If you do not serve any individuals ages 0 to 5, please put a 0 there. If your primary population is, 6 to 10-year-olds, please put in that number. If you don't serve anyone 55 plus, put a 0 there. And if you don't know their age, please put them in the unknown. Race.
Each one of these sections, and the reason why Isabel is stressing the unknown is because that's where we tend to see the issue here. So that's a good thing. But each one of these sections, whether it be race, ethnicity, whatever, they all need to add up to the same thing. So if you served 120 people, your race section needs to add up to 120 people. Your ethnicity section needs to add up to 120 people. So I think there's some checks and balances already in here, but just keep that in mind as you're working through this. So where people tend to mess up, if you will, is they tend to not put the unknown in there. And so race all of a sudden might just be 79 because they didn't put the unknowns in. 9 times out of 10, when we call and ask, hey, what is this? It's, oh yeah, we don't know what those are. And so they're unknown. But we can't just assume that. So just be aware that's your checks and balances. Each section should add up to the same amount.
Yeah. And we do have a calculation, and I will show you at the bottom because it is towards the bottom of the page. So again, this is with race. I'm just going to say that we had different pieces of demographic info required. Please fill in as much information that is known and the numbers aren't duplicated. If it's not known, put a known. If you don't record that, put a 0. Again, for ethnicity. And then we also have residency area as well. If your program is serving people specifically in Chippewa County, click Chippewa County, and then it's divided into villages, towns, cities, and zip codes as well. And if you serve both counties, then Eau Claire County will also pop up as well. If you don't know, there's also an unknown area as well. And if you hover over here, you'll notice this little box that says enter the number of unduplicated clients in Chippewa and Eau Claire counties served by this program. Annual household income. We also know that some programs do not require participants or clients to complete the annual household income. If you don't know, put them in unknown. And as Kelly was talking about, we have this little checks and balances that says all demographic info listed below should be equal. If they are not, go back and edit the necessary information. So I'm just going to put in a number in here that says 15. And I'm thinking it should change. If not, then that's funky. Why it's not changing.
It's a while.
It's a what?
Try hitting save. Try hitting save. It might change the number then.
All right. And theoretically, these numbers should update. So the numbers that I've inputted here should be updated. This should say 45. Not sure why it's not updating. No, Snapple. Oh, it has updated. It just takes a little while. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yes, so anything you input here, as you can see, the totals the total calculation is right here, so it should update as soon as you click save draft. If it's not, it just may take a while. But these totals should be the same number. If one number is off, you'll know exactly which section is not is off. So you can go ahead and update that.
This is
What?
probably the
Go
other, next to the budgets, this is probably the other area where we have the most difficulty, or I shouldn't say difficulty, the most questions, where things are not adding up right. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to check your own work, so that by the time it gets submitted, you've already taken care of those kinds of things. The reason why we need this, obviously it's for reporting purposes, because we aggregate all the data across initiative. We take your data as an individual organization. We add it together with the other data from those in your initiative. And then we also add all of that data together and say, we invested $1 million and here's what happened with it. And so we need to have that information as detailed or as accurate as possible. We also write our own grants here, for some funding to do things that we do. Having accurate data is incredibly helpful. So, so the budget and this is probably, wouldn't you say, Isabella, are probably the two things that we spend the most time on once the APRs have been received, and making sure that we have accurate information.
Yeah. So after parts 1, 2, and 3, Tony and I kind of just do our checks and balances, and you will, if something is off, you will just receive an email from us saying, can you clarify this? Right. This part is, I have reviewed all the contents associated with sections 1, 2, and 3. I should probably change it to actually say parts 1, 2, and 3. And the attachments to your best knowledge, name of agency, organization, and name of programming. And this is where we will require you to, if your CEO is not someone who completes this APR, please share your login information with them so that they can directly sign, and they can sign it above. And if they think it's hideous, if I think my finger is hideous, you can just click reset and it will reset. The date and then the name of the CEO. Save draft or submit when you're ready to submit. Any questions?
So just know that we only have your CEO sign off on this one time, even though there's 3 parts to the annual progress report. So when they sign this third section, or part 3, they're signing off saying they understand everything that's in 1, 2, and 3. So just be aware of that. This APR used to be one document when you had to fill it out when it wasn't online. But because it's so big, we've divided it into parts, and now you've got 3 different parts. So it may feel like 3 separate things, but it's really not. It's really not. So just know that when your CEO signs off on that, they're signing off on parts 1, 2, and 3.
So this is kind of what we mean. If we go back to the APR main page, parts 1, 2, and 3, your CEO is certifying that they've, read, that they have knowledge that this is being done, and that they've read that this all looks fine. They're signing off on it.
And they will be getting, because remember the top of the page on each part, we ask for their email address. They will be getting your submissions for parts 1, 2, and 3. So they will get the confirmation email. They will be able to see what it is. And then when the third one goes in, then that's where they're signing off saying, I've read it all and I understand what is being submitted.
Any questions? All right, we're down to our last part, and part 4. This part 4 is an agency specific, is an agency part, and what I mean by that is that if I guess we're picking on Western Dairyland, sorry Becca, but if you're Western Dairyland and you have 3 programs that's receiving United Way funding, 3 different programs, then only one of you is required to submit part 4 because it is an agency's kind of specific section, with the exception of attachment A. So again, in parts 1, 2, and 3, as Kelly said, we require this info. It's all on in all the 4 parts as well. Did you previously complete attachment A? Again, attachment A is also in part 3. This is your program budget. If you have previously completed and submitted attachment A, click yes, no box will appear. If you click no, then a box will appear for you to download the budget form and also upload it as well.
Isabel, I want to step back just a minute. Actually, every program has to complete this.
Okay.
Complete part 4.
Okay.
Whether or not you have to upload everything, though, is where the difference lies. So each program will need to complete this and upload their budget if they haven't done it already. And I'm not sure we mentioned that your budget can be submitted either on the July 24th date. But some organizations, again, are not ready to, they haven't closed out their books yet and need a little bit more time to close out their, to close out their books for this grant year. And so it can be submitted at this August 21st date as well. So that's why the question of did you send a copy or wait, did you previously submit attachment A? Attachment A is the budget. If you've already submitted it, you click yes and you move on. If you haven't submitted it, now you absolutely have to.
Yep. It's sorry about that confusion. Yes, all programs are required to submit all 4 parts. I forgot about that for 1 second. And the reason for that, even though it is agency specific, all programs are required to submit part 4, whether you're receiving funding in multiple initiatives, whether agencies are receiving funding in multiple initiatives. And the reason why we ask this is because there's a question here that says, did you previously complete attachments E through I for another program? You'll click yes, and Becca has communicated with Katie that, Katie has already submitted all the attachments for Western Dairyland. Then Becca will click yes. And if no, then a boxes will appear for you to upload those attachments. Attachment E is a document that you have on your own, and it is the agency profit and loss statement, and you will upload that. And it must be in a PDF form.
Yep. And we're looking for actuals versus comparisons, or versus the actual versus budget comparison. So kind of like what you did for the program budget, now we're looking for an agency budget, but you can use your own formatting for that.
Yeah. Attachment F is your most recent agency balance sheet. Submit one. And it is a document you will have on your own, and please upload that, and must be in a PDF form. Attachment G is the most recently completed audit, and we have the requirements of what we will need if an audit is not required for an organization, if your agency's annual budget is less than 300,000. But we also require that if that is the case, we do ask that you at least have some type of document that says our annual budget is less than 300,000. And here are the different requirements. If your annual budget is greater than 300,000, if your organization received over 300,000 in revenue, must be reviewed by an independent CPA. If your organization is receiving over $500,000 in revenue, you must submit an audited financial statement and an opinion of an independent CPA. These are requirements by the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions. And you will be able to upload your most recently completed audit. And I believe this is probably one of the biggest reasons why we have Part 4 due in August versus July. Because some agencies won't receive their audit till maybe early August. Attachment H is the federal tax return. So for most organizations, it's 990 or 1040. The only agencies I believe do not have a 990 or 1040 are public institutions such as a health department, county health department, or a school district is an example. But we do require that you at least submit a document that says we do not have a federal tax return because we are a public entity. Something like some type of documentation that indicates why you do not have a federal tax return. All right. Attachment I, this was in the past, this was a document that we had programs complete, and now it's just a kind of a set of questions. And the reason why we ask these questions is because we do have a finance committee that reviews the financial wellness of your agency to see how things are going. Again, it asks, has your organization obtained any long-term debt over the past review period? Has your organization had any large changes in income or expenses over the last review period? Is the organization's net income within 15% of the budgeted net income? Is the program's budget for the coming year in alignment / appropriate compared with the previous actual results? Sorry. And any other insights that would explain any other revenue or expense anomalies that would help the reviewer. Our reviewer is the finance committee, who are a set of volunteers that we have reviewing the financial wellness.
So when they're looking at your balance sheets, your audits and things like that, and if there's something that is weird in there, tell them before they find it. This is your opportunity to just kind of explain those, weird things that happened, maybe a one-time thing. Again, I know the housing world. So you had a, $300,000 forgivable loan become forgiven in a particular year. That's going to make a difference on your balance sheet. Tell us that, tell us those kinds of things. So we get that numbers are numbers. We understand that. But sometimes there's a story behind the numbers. And so please use this attachment I to provide the reviewers with any narrative that may help them assess your financial wellness, if you will, the best that they can.
If you click yes, a box will appear. If you click no, no box. And this kind of I think applies for most of them, but click them, and again, as Kelly mentioned, provide an explanation. So attachments, either again, this is where your CEO signs that they have certified and they've reviewed all the information, and they put in their name, signature, name of agency, organization, save draft if you're still working on it, and then submit once you're ready to submit. Any questions?
So right now it makes a lot of sense, and then you're going to start filling it out, and then it's not. So no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, hopefully it will make sense to you all. In the event that things don't make sense, as Isabella mentioned, we have the virtual office hours scheduled. Feel free to join us for those. If those don't work for you, also, you can give us a call, email us, whatever, based on initiatives. So Isabella takes care of her folks, I take care of mine. But the word of caution that I have for you is that if you've never completed one of these, don't wait till the last minute. They're due on Monday, and if you wait till Friday and think, oh, I'm going to take the day on Friday, you're going to spend your weekend doing this, and that's not what we want you to do. So start working on it, when you can. Otherwise you will be very angry with yourself and United Way over that weekend. And I'm speaking from experience. So I did that. I spent a very nice weekend out on my patio outside doing APRs one summer, and was very mad at myself for waiting till the last minute. So please don't do that. Give yourself the opportunity to get things taken care of. The other thing that we noticed, those of you that have servers that will automatically clear out your cookies and things like that, you may have to reset your password every time you log in. That's on your end. There's nothing we can do on our end for that. I think the school district had trouble with that last year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the county, I think the county might have as well. So it's just all about the security that your system has. So if you're finding that your password isn't saving that you're having to create a new password each time, it's that. It's not the end of the world. It's just time consuming on your end. And there's nothing we can do about that.
I also found out the hard way. Be sure you save often because you will time out and lose all your work. So yeah. So every time I fill out a new box or whatever, I just go and hit save just to be safe. So
yeah. I will say I did get. I don't want to stop sharing my screen, but I will share my screen again really quickly. I did get asked the question by someone if we have a Word document that of the APR, just so we can, just so you can go save in a Word document and then save, and then input the answers at a later time once you have all the information. Unfortunately, we do not have a Word document of APR this year. We did last year because we had previously had paper copies, but we do not have it this year, so because we've updated everything on our website here. But my recommendation is you print and save as a PDF, so that way you can provide at least some comments on the PDF, and then copy and paste those comments into this text at a later time. And one thing I also want to say too, if you have any leftover United Way funds, please return any unused United Way funds to us by, I think the deadline is August 4th. Any comments, questions? This is your opportunity. I know we kind of just went through a lot and you're probably inundated with a lot of content, but that is kind of the APR from start to finish. And I will stop recording.